Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Erin Blue, Executive Director at the Peggy R. McConnell Arts Center in Worthington, and we are here talking with Barbara Fant, local poet. Barbara, could you please take a moment and introduce yourself and let us know a little bit more about you?
Sure. Hello, everyone. So good to be here. My name is Barbara Fant. I'm a poet. I'm a teaching artist. I'm a facilitator. I'm a sister. I'm an auntie. I'm a friend. And I also serve as the artistic director for Harmony Project. Been in the community for a long time, originally from Youngstown, Ohio, but I've been writing and performing for over a decade now. I got involved in what's called Slam, and that kind of took me all over the world. And I'm just blessed to be able to share my gift with so many people. It's an honor.
Can you tell us a little bit about how you got involved with the mural project with Art Unite C-Bus? I know you were part of the Stephanie Rond mural, and it was a collaboration, was it not?
Correct. It was. It was. Yeah. I mean, when the protests broke out in the city, it was a lot. I think everybody wanted to do something, and especially the artists. So the Ohio Theater called on several different artists to do this mural project. Stephanie Ron and I have worked together a lot in the past. She's a good friend and an incredible artist. And she wanted to do a mural there as well. She said yes to the project. And then she just felt like she couldn't be the only one that had a voice in the space. So she wanted to make sure that there was a Black woman's voice in the space as well, which I so appreciated. And then when she came to me, I just felt like it couldn't just be me that had a voice in that space. So I wanted to collaborate with other artists. So I called up my fellow poets, Dion Custer Edwards, Cynthia Amoa, Taisha Ratford Shorts, Nafisa Malik, and Bahira Malik. And I just asked them to each give me a line. And together we collaborated on this piece. It was called Our Lady Justice, which was the title of the mural. Shout out to Kainisha Holloway as well, who was the model for the actual mural project. And so it was a great opportunity to have our voices just uplifted in that space.
So have you written collaboratively like that in the past? I mean, I know you have probably a great writing process for your own work. What was that like to try to kind of combine works from multiple poets together in one space?
Yeah, so I have in the past. I mean, like when you slam, a lot of times you'll do pieces together. That's kind of the beauty of having like a team, is that you can write collaboratively together. So we have what's called group piece. People know it, they'll shout it out like group piece, like if they know you're coming up on stage with a group piece. And so I've been able to write together in spaces with people before. I also was a part of a choreo poem, writing a choreo poem through a project with Maroon Arts Group called Inside the Riot. And so there were several artists that got together for many, many weeks, and we wrote this entire choreo poem piece. So for me, it is a natural thing. I also am in my brain, I feel like I work kind of like an architect, I put poems together like puzzles. So a lot of times I'll have different lines that come to me, and then I'll like number them on my page, and then that kind of formulates the poem. So the first line I get might be the last line, or it might be in the middle of the poem, but I don't know it yet until it kind of fully comes together. So building pieces like that together is something that's natural to me. And I love it. And so I'm so thankful that they said yes.
I love also that we were able to bring your work into the indoor exhibition that we have here called From the Outside In, and that came through a collaboration with Ryan Moss, who when I talked to him about like, how could we get Barbara to be part of this visual art exhibition, he said, why don't I just, paint it? So can you tell us a little bit about why you picked the poem that you did and what that process was like working with Ryan?
Yeah, he's great. I mean, I love Brian. He's incredibly talented and I have known him for years, and just always honored when we get to the chance to be in the same space together. So when he reached out, I said, well, you know what, let's kind of do something that surrounds joy, that talks about the moment and talks about the Black voice and being in that space, but and the realities and the challenges that we face, but also is a message of joy and hope. And so the piece that I chose is called But Tonight. And it's really, if you read it, it reads more like a chant. So it builds and it repeats. And that's kind of something that I wanted to have in the space. It's also short, right? It's one of my shorter poems, right? So which fit well visually on a painting. So yeah, it just worked out. I'm so thankful that he asked.
That's great. We really enjoyed the process of getting that to us, to the gallery. It was still wet when it came into the gallery. We had to let it sit and dry so we could hang on the wall. So really people are able to come take a look at that and in our gallery for as long as the show is up through the end of February, and then also to look at it online on our website. So that's really great. Can you tell us a little bit about what you find uplifting about the world or in the city today in our community? Where do you find hope right now during these troubling times?
Yeah, I think as an artist, I always turn to the art. So one, my faith is a big part of my life. It always has been a big part of my journey and finding hope. But also the artist, that's one thing that did not stop during the pandemic. Okay. It's like we didn't have the same stages, we weren't selling the same amount of tickets, we weren't getting paid the same, but the art did not stop. People kept creating. And as artists, that's what we're going to do. And I think that's something that inspires me. Just because the world stops doesn't mean the artist does. And we just keep pushing. We do what we know how to do best, and that's create. And it's what we're called to do. It's what we're built to do. And so that's something that truly inspires me. And the young people, with so many young people that are like popping up all over the place that are just doing their thing. And I'm not old, you know what I mean? But I'm kind of like, I've been around for a long time, okay? And so this new generation is coming up under me, which we are going to have a new generation coming up under them and, or coming up under us. And this new generation, they're doing it. They don't care. They don't ask, right? They don't ask for permission. They just do it. And I love that. I love that about them. And they're not just doing one thing, they're doing multiple things, and nobody's going to tell them that they can't. And they're brilliant. So I'm inspired by that constantly.
You talked a little bit about how your faith is really a place where you find inspiration. Are there other artists or poets, whether those are people that you knew that were mentors or national or well-known poets or artists that have inspired you through your path?
Ooh, oh my goodness. Yeah. Too many
Small
artists.
list. Small list. Top 20 will work.
Too many artists to name. I mean, definitely locally, it's too many artists to name, but definitely is said, who has had a huge influence on me. He is a mentor of mine. He's been a mentor of mine for years. Our birthdays are a day apart. He's in his 80s, and he's somebody that really just took me around the city and told me that I could do anything I wanted to do, and put me on stage with him when I didn't know what the heck I was doing. But he just said, go and do it. And so he opened a door for me. Of course, Will Evans, of course, Scott Woods, Hanif Abdulkarib, Kim Braswell, Izetta. I mean, any name, so many local artists. I can't even do it. But I think on a national level, definitely Sonny Patterson. Sonny Patterson is somebody I saw when I was in high school on HBO Def Poetry. And I was like, oh my goodness, I don't know what the heck she just did, but I want to do what she did for the rest of my life. So Mahogany Brown, who published my first book. So just too many to name, but definitely blessed by the wealth and the breadth of artists that have had an impact on my life, for sure.
Was there a moment? So there are a lot of people that find poetry through school or through other experiences, and they find it as a creative outlet, but they're like, okay, that's fine. Now I'm going to go, do my day job, right? Was there a moment, or was there a particular time when you realized that this was really the career path for you and the passion project for you for your life?
Yeah, I think that moment came many times, but definitely, yeah, it was definitely in college, when I was entering slams and was able to travel and tour and able to see what the women and what specifically the women, what they were doing on stage. So your Andrea Gibsons, Era D Matthews, your Mahogany's, like what they were doing on stage. And I was like, oh my goodness, like they're changing the world. And that's what I want to do. Like, this is what I'm called to do. This is what I'm purposed and footed to do. And so definitely in college, and then it got reaffirmed later, and then it got reaffirmed later, and the Lord keeps opening doors for me. So I'm just so blessed by that and grateful for that. But yeah, I would say in college is when I knew for sure that I'm gonna be a writer, and and that's who I am, and I'm good with that.
Awesome. Well, we are certainly the beneficiaries of your passion and your work. There are a lot of people probably watching this video that maybe haven't been to a poetry slam, haven't been to an event, don't know what maybe to expect. Can you talk a little bit about what a slam event looks like, what you can expect, and how can we engage, maybe once we can do things in person again, how can we engage in our community in this art form?
Ooh, okay, yeah. So slams are like, I think people think a lot of times like poetry readings are like quiet and you just like snap your fingers, and that's not a slam at all. Like, we are super loud in slams, which is like so fun. So slam, the idea of slam is it's a competitive space. So it's competitive poetry. So you get up there, you rock the best poem that you got. So a lot of it is the written piece, but then the rest of it is the performance piece and how you deliver it to the audience. It's timed, typically 3 minutes, unless you're doing like an individual slam, but typically it's 3 minutes. You can't go over that, or less points will be deducted. You're scored on your poem. So it's a space like, they're like, you can't score poetry. Actually, in a slam, you can. That's what we do, right? And so you're judged on a score from 0 to 10. It's a point scale, and then they take the average score from those 5 judges. And a lot of times, the way that a slam traditionally works is the judges are picked randomly out of the audience, even at a national level. So you can have a judge, right, that is like, poetry is their thing. Or you can have a judge where they've never heard a poem ever in their life, and they're just like, well, what in the world is happening? And they could be the judges. The only rule is they can't have any affiliation with another poet who's actually in the slam. So with that being said, there's tons of poetry venues around or nationally, but especially in this city. And for a long time, there were 2 qualified slam venues. Righting Wrongs Poetry Slam is still one of them. COVID kind of like shifted, of course, the way everything works, but it is still a space. There's still poetry at Writer's Block, Cafe Kerouac. You can jump into that space as well. Seventh Draft, Native Tongues. So there's several different spots in the city where you can get involved. So just be on the lookout for them. You can follow those pages. A lot of times I'm reposting things as well. So if you follow me, you can tag on there as well.
I know we're all really looking forward to an opportunity to be in space and share physical space with others again. And, maybe this is going to be an opportunity for us to find new spaces that we didn't typically inhabit before. So that's great. Do you have kind of a particular memory or a moment that you were really proud of as an artist, an accomplishment, one of the slam competitions, or maybe something even smaller that was just really a special moment for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot, there's so many special moments I think that I've had over the years. Initially what came to mind is being in Toronto and being on a final stage for the first time when I was like 20 years old. And our team from Columbus, Ohio won that year, which is a regional slam. And I had a conversation that night after I won with Mahogany Brown, and she was just like, I'm going to publish your book. And I was like, I have like 3 poems. I don't have enough poems to publish a book. And she was like, you will. And she did it, and she was right. And she did it. So I think that was a moment that was really reaffirming for me. So definitely then I think Women of the World making final stage at that point in time too, just because I was so honored and just so inspired by so many of the women in that space. So to be able to stand on stage with them at finals was just incredible for me.
So the other thing I'm thinking about is we've been working as an art center in trying to promote ways to support artists during this time, or during, times after the ones we're in right now. So what's the best way that patrons can support you personally, or SLAM as an art form, or as, you know, in a diverse equity kind of artistic space in our community? What are some suggestions that you have for that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think that just uplifting our work in so many spaces. One of the things that I have been doing, I've been called upon to do, especially during COVID, is as these like conversations around race and around diversity, or even just resiliency are happening. Even on Zoom, people have been asking me to come in and help ground this space, to help either do a poem or present a poetry exercise to all these non-traditional spaces, like spaces where you would not necessarily see poetry. And that has been such a blessing for me. People pay me to do it. It's been awesome. But I think thinking about non-traditional spaces, like spaces where you wouldn't see poetry in, think about hiring an artist to be in that space. If you're thinking about having a grounding exercise or a resiliency space, or just a relaxation and rest space, think about hiring an artist to help ground you in that space. That it would be a blessing for us. And it puts money in our pockets, okay? Because artists need to get paid, okay, for what they do. So I think that's a big part of it. You know, on a small scale, repost, retweet, do whatever you can in that way. We have lots of online events. Please tag in that way. That's one of the best things that you can do for us. And then a lot of people have Patreon, so you can also sign up for that, even if it's like $1 a day or $5, you know, whatever it is, you can help someone out in that way as well. I have a lot of online events. That would be a beautiful way to support me. You know, think about non-traditional spaces. Buy our books. We have books online. I don't have a book out right now. I will this year, though. My book is coming out this year. By the end of this year, it'll be out. So, but lots of other artists in the city have books. They have music. So go support those things. Download the music, buy the books, buy the merchandise. All of that is helpful.
So we're only about 10 days maybe after the presidential inauguration, and I would be remiss to not have a conversation with you briefly about Amanda Gorman and your feedback and your reaction to her great poem that day.
Yeah, I mean, what can I say that hasn't already been said about her? I mean, I think she is fantastic. What she did was, I think she set a tone. She gave the right words at the right time, you know, in the right space. And it was a beautiful thing. It was a beautiful thing to see. It was a beautiful thing for, you know, to see a Black young woman up there in that space. I think she did something for young Black women, young Black girls, but then also for poetry. I think that she elevated the level of poetry. There were so many people who said, I hear poetry in a new way now. Like I never thought about poetry in this way. And I heard from a lot of other poets, you know, nationally, who were just saying like, now my family tells me that they're, you know, I'm validated in what I do or what I've chosen for a living. I've heard that like so many, you know, so many ways, because she just set a standard. So it was incredible. It was awesome to see. It also gave me such hope and gratitude for so many of the people that are cultivating so many spaces for young people. There are so many people who have paved the way for us. You know, I think immediately of Patricia Smith. There's so many people who have paved the way for us to be able to do what we do. And it's because of their bravery and their courage, and their strength in stepping up in these spaces where poetry wasn't, or just to continue the legacy of poetry that opened up the door for a space, for her to have a space in this world. So it was beautiful. It was, yeah, it was an honor to see.
Thank you so much, Barbara, and everyone else for watching today. And one more note, This piece of artwork that has Barbara's words on it is, like many other pieces in our gallery, for sale. And those sales do support the artists that are in our gallery exhibition. So we hope that you can support the artists either by promotion or by purchase of their work. And thanks again, Barbara, for joining us today. And thanks to all of you out there in the universe.